All right, CC, how much did KD need a game like last night?
I don't think that he needed the game because he's got a tremendous reputation. He's a natural scorer of the basketball. But it's very, very important when you start getting into series that your best players play well. Now, KD said something in the press conference that I don't necessarily agree with when he said, I don't have anything to prove. Internally, you have something to prove to yourself. That's why you're out there playing the game. He's a lover of basketball, and he has a problem sometimes with some of the other things that come with being an NBA star. So I thought last night he was going to have a good game. I didn't think that Patrick Beverley could continue, and I didn't think the NBA would allow Patrick Beverley basically to mug him. Basically hand-checking, clutching, all the things that Doc Rivers really thrived at in the NBA when he played in a lot bigger than Patrick Beverley, but that was his style. And that's what he teaches. And those tactics defensively, that's why part of the reason why Kevin Durant was upset was because no one else in the league is being guarded that way. Unless you're a big guy in the paint, they're going to allow you to get away with more things. But Patrick Beverley in game 1, game 2, they allowed him to play 80s defense on Kevin Durant. It did get into his head, but Steve Kerr did what most good coaches do. You have to help out your star players. Yeah, there's a lot of basketball that's one-on-one. You can clear it out, but they all need help. Steph needs help, all right? Clay needs help, and KD needed help. And what they did for him, especially early in the game, was they made it. It was a priority for him to post up. But they weren't going to throw the ball directly into the post. What they did was put him in the low post, put Andrew Bogut in the starting lineup, put him in the low post, and had another 7-1 guy screen for him coming across the lane. So then he got a little bit of space, and you could see once he was getting the ball, he was going to dribble 1 or 2 times and get his shot up. That's what Kevin Durant does. So Steve Kerr did what good coaches do. You have to still be able to help your star players out because most sports, they're not one-on-one battles. You do have one-on-one battles within the scheme, but give me some help. As Kevin Durant said, typically, I used to be able to predict when I was going to have a great game based on the game plan, based on the philosophy of what the coaches were trying to do. And then last night, Steve Kerr helped his star out.
We should maybe disregard some of the things Kevin Durant said before the game and after the game, because I don't know how accurate they are. But what is accurate is this. Kevin Durant did exactly what he was supposed to do, what he needed to do, and what people who have watched him for the better part of almost a decade and a half now, 12 years, knew he could do. This wasn't, to me, the Warriors drawing up a very specific, unique game plan to this. This was Kevin Durant taking shots that he had passed up in games 1 and 2. This was Kevin Durant, despite saying, I'm not going to go out there and shoot 20-plus times, going out there and shooting 20-plus times.
Well, 20 wasn't in question.
He said
30 was in question.
Well, he said, I'm not going to shoot 20 to 30 times. That's what he said.
Yeah, well, he was definitely trying to respond to the question. Mm-hmm. The 30 shots is out of question because that's just something that he doesn't do. So I'm not saying Kevin Durant didn't do what he was supposed to do, but when the coach comes up with a game plan, if we were doing the show and we were like, Nick, we're going to be heavy on Nick Wright in the A's and B's, you would know that you got to be able to do your job. And you could see that their game plan last night, and it was not the same as the first 2 games.
Yeah, so okay, we're going to agree to disagree on that because Kevin Durant had the exact looks that he was passing up in games 1 and 2, and he was taking them. He had those mid-range jump shots available to him early in the series, but he did what he's supposed to do. He was outstanding. He got 2 fouls within 90 seconds of the game starting. He could have gotten frustrated. He could have gotten mad at the refs. One of those fouls was super questionable. Credit to Kerr for leaving him in. And he was great. He was the Kevin Durant that we know exists and that we know can do this, not any night, because you can't be that efficient every night,
right,
but he is a threat on any given night to go for nearly 40. Like, Steph was in foul trouble. Steph picked up his 3rd foul midway through the 3rd quarter. KD stepped up again. Steph picked up fouls in the 3rd, or midway through the 2nd quarter, picked up his 3rd foul. And then 3rd quarter picked up his 4th. KD stepped up again. He didn't even have to play in the 4th quarter. He was great. He was the exact guy that Steve Kerr, when he gave his press conference, saying, I think Kevin's going to take 22, 30 shots.
Be more aggressive, be more assertive.
That's exactly what he was. And that's what he was supposed to be. So he can say this was just, it had nothing to do with games 1 or 2. I don't believe that. Kevin Durant is as aware of the commentary surrounding him as anyone in basketball.
Right, I agree with you on that part. He was sometimes great performances are forced out of you.
Yeah.
And his team needed it. Boogie Cousins is hurt. So they had a couple days to be able to prepare. They're putting Bogut into the lineup. And if you look at, man, why is this series tied up 1-1? A lot was because of that time that they fell asleep in the second half. But they had to have a tremendous amount of confidence. They had a 20-point lead in game number 1, a 30-point lead in game number 2. So as we saw last night, they had another 20-point lead in the game. So I'm sure they had a lot of confidence. Every team is making adjustments. When you look to the third game of all these series, each team is making what you call a series adjustment. And this was one of the adjustments that the Warriors made, that they're going to go, instead of going through Steph, going through Clay, they were going through KD, putting Bogut into the lineup. So those are the things to me that were very obvious as far as the differences between game 1 and game 2. Even though KD ended up getting the ball in some of the same spots that he got it in game number 1, how he got it, I thought, was very different, especially early in the game.
But I'm sure the Warriors never thought they were even going to have to get to the point where they had to make adjustments in the first opening round of the playoffs against the Clippers. How much of game 2 do you think was a wake-up call, if you will, for both the Warriors and for Kevin Durant?
Absolutely. You lose your starting center and you blow the biggest lead in NBA playoff history. They came out in that first quarter with the playoff intensity, and they did what the Warriors have done so often over this 5-year run, particularly the last 3, which is they have shown the ability on both ends of the court to clamp you down.
Yeah, that's important.
I mean, what they did defensively in that first quarter, now the Clippers went on a little bit of a run to cut it to 17 at the end of the first quarter, but Draymond is flying all over the place, playmaking. You have Bogut is in there all of a sudden looking like the guy who just won MVP of his Australian league. Durant was doing it on both ends. Clay hasn't had a good shooting night yet in this series, but he's playing. The Warriors instantly became the world-destroying force they wanted to be. And when KD's hitting those 17-footers that aren't touching anything but the bottom of the net's barely moving, when they play like that, nobody's beating them.
One thing I've seen with the Warriors, and I really respect it, the camaraderie that they have as a group. And even before KD got there, whenever one of their star players, when their guys in their core group struggle, they go out of their way. When Iggy was struggling, they went out of their way to get him back into a group. When Steph was struggling in the finals, before KD got there, they went out of their way to get him into the flow. We have seen with Clay, the way he started the season, Draymond, they have done these things. They did the same thing for KD last night. It's the sign of a great team, a great organization. One of the things that gets Nick upset is it's a luxury. KD don't have to play like this every night. When all the other top 5 players, when they have an off night, you end up losing. They get criticized. But KD has the luxury, because he's been in Golden State the last 3 years. I understand and respect that.
Well, and I want to say one thing, because I'm very critical of Kevin Durant for some of the stuff off the court. What he did last night was spectacular. He answered, he had scrutiny on him, unlike he's had at any point this season. The Warriors, for the first time all year, they weren't in a must-win game, but this was the highest leverage game they've played all season, right? The first game that if they lose, we'd be like, whoa.
Yeah.
And he was the best player on the court by a country mile. He was spectacular from the first moment of the game to the end of the third quarter when he checked out of the game, and they took total control back of the series.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.